Look, I'm not gonna sugarcoat this. That night changed everything, and I mean everything. See, when you're the daughter of the most powerful judge in California, you grow up thinking you know exactly how the world works. Good guys wear suits, bad guys wear orange jumpsuits. Clean lines, right? Wrong. So dead wrong it's almost funny. Because the second his lips touched mine in that dim parking garage off Sunset Boulevard, every single rule I'd been taught just shattered like glass hitting concrete. And here's the kicker, the thing that keeps me up at night even now, I knew exactly who he was. Vincent Moretti. The name whispered in courtrooms, the ghost in every organized crime case that crossed my father's bench. And I kissed him anyway. Not because I was naive, not because I didn't understand the consequences. I kissed him because for the first time in my carefully constructed life, something felt real. Dangerous? Absolutely. Stupid? Probably. But real in a way that made everything else feel like I'd been living in black and white. And that kiss, that single moment of weakness, it started a chain reaction that would bring down empires, destroy families, and force me to choose between the man who raised me and the man who made me feel alive. If you're still here, it's because you felt it, that tension, that danger, that pull you pretend you don't crave. So listen carefully, hit subscribe now. Not for me, for you, because once you enter this world, you don't just watch a story. You feel it. You live it. You fall with the characters you were warned to stay away from. Every episode leaves a mark, every twist hits deeper than the last. Every secret pulls you further into the kind of forbidden emotions you don't admit out loud. If you want stories that make your heart race, your mind obsess, and your chest tighten like you're the one being looked at across that interrogation room, subscribe before the next chapter drops, because once it starts, you won't want to be the one asking what you missed. 2 days later, I'm grabbing coffee at this spot on Melrose, the kind of place where aspiring screenwriters pretend to work on their laptops while actually scrolling Instagram, and there he is. Sitting outside, reading the LA Times like he's got all the time in the world, like he's not the most wanted man in my father's jurisdiction. And when I walk past, trying to act casual, trying to be invisible, he doesn't even look up. Just says, real smooth Sophia, right? Judge Harrison's daughter. You should try the cold brew here. It's killer. My blood runs ice cold because how the hell does he know my name, and why is he acting like we're old friends? I should have kept walking. Should have called my dad right then and there. Should have done a million things that weren't standing there like an idiot with my mouth half open. But instead, I heard myself say, "You stalking me now?" And he finally looks up, and there's this ghost of a smile playing at his lips. He goes, "Stalking is such an ugly word. Let's call it strategic awareness. Besides, you're the one who couldn't stop staring at me during that interrogation. Don't think I didn't notice." The audacity, right? But he wasn't wrong, and we both knew it. So I sat down. Biggest mistake of my life, or maybe the first real choice I ever made, I still can't decide. We talked for 3 hours. 3 hours that felt like 30 minutes. And here's what messed me up, he wasn't what I expected. Vincent didn't talk about crime or violence or any of the stuff my father's case files were full of. He talked about his mother, how she used to make pasta from scratch every Sunday, how she died when he was 15 and that's when everything changed for him. He talked about growing up in a neighborhood where you either joined a crew or became a victim, where loyalty wasn't just a word but the difference between living and disappearing. He talked about art, would you believe that? This mob boss knew more about Caravaggio than half the pretentious art majors at Stanford. And when I asked him why he was really there that day at the interrogation, why he cared about some random guy caught with guns, he got real quiet. Looked me dead in the eye and said, "Because that random guy has a 6-year-old daughter who shouldn't have to grow up without a father over something stupid. Because I know what that feels like. And I make sure my people's families are protected even when they screw up. Especially when they screw up." That's when it hit me. This wasn't some movie villain sitting across from me. This was a man operating in shades of gray my black and white world had no framework for. A man who broke laws but had his own twisted code of honor. A man who could probably have me killed with a phone call but was sitting here being vulnerable about his dead mother. The cognitive dissonance was killing me. I should have left right then. Should have recognized I was way out of my depth. But when he asked if I wanted to grab dinner sometime, somewhere quiet where we wouldn't be seen, I said yes. I actually said yes. And that's how it started. Secret meetings in places where nobody knew our faces. Late night drives up the PCH with the windows down and the ocean crashing beside us. Conversations that went deeper than anything I'd ever had with the Ivy League boys my father kept trying to set me up with. Vincent treated me like I had a brain, like my opinions mattered, like I was more than just Judge Harrison's perfect daughter. He challenged me. When I'd spout some idealistic law school theory about justice, he'd counter with real-world examples that made my arguments fall apart. When I'd judge his choices, he'd ask me what I would have done in his shoes, with his history, with his responsibilities. And I never had good answers. Slowly, without even realizing it, I started seeing the world through a different lens. Started questioning things I'd always accepted as absolute truth. My father's cases didn't look so simple anymore. The criminals he sentenced weren't just bad people making bad choices. They were products of systems, of circumstances, of impossible situations where every option led to pain. Vincent was teaching me something they never covered at Stanford, that morality gets real complicated when you're not sitting in an ivory tower. But we had rules. Strict ones. No touching beyond casual, no crossing certain lines, no letting it become more than these intellectual sparring matches in shadowy corners of LA. Because we both knew what would happen if we did. We both understood the consequences. My father would destroy him, or Vincent's world would destroy me, or we'd destroy each other. Pick your poison. For 6 weeks we kept it platonic. 6 weeks of the most intense non-physical relationship I'd ever experienced. 6 weeks of falling for someone I couldn't have, shouldn't want, and definitely couldn't keep. And I'm not gonna lie, it was torture. Every time he'd lean close to make a point, every time our hands would accidentally brush, every time he'd look at me with those eyes that seemed to see parts of me I'd hidden from everyone else, it took everything in me not to just say screw it and close the distance. But we held the line. Until we didn't. Until that night in the parking garage off Sunset Boulevard. The night everything I'm telling you about started because of one moment of weakness that felt like the strongest thing I'd ever done. See, my father's office had just greenlit a massive RICO case against Vincent's organization. The kind of case that doesn't just put you away, it buries you so deep you never see daylight again. And I'd overheard details I shouldn't have, details that could help Vincent prepare, could give him an advantage, could maybe save his life. Meeting him that night wasn't about romance. It was about warning him. About breaking every oath I'd ever taken, betraying every value I'd been raised with, but somehow feeling like I was finally doing something honest. I texted him the location, 11 p.m, come alone. And he did. When Vincent's black Mercedes pulled into that underground garage, my heart was hammering so hard I thought I might pass out. He stepped out wearing dark jeans and a leather jacket, looking nothing like the polished businessman I'd seen in court photos, and everything like the dangerous man my father had warned me about my entire life. He walked toward me slowly, cautiously, like he was approaching a wounded animal. Sophia, what's wrong? What happened? And that's when I realized he thought something bad had happened to me. That he'd dropped everything and come rushing because he thought I was in danger. This man, this supposed monster, looked genuinely terrified that I might be hurt. I told him everything. About the RICO case, about the wiretaps, about the witness they'd flipped who was going to testify. About how they had enough evidence to put him away for life and then some. I was talking fast, words tumbling over each other, and he just stood there listening with this unreadable expression. When I finished, there was this heavy silence. Just the hum of fluorescent lights and distant traffic echoing through concrete. Then he said something that absolutely wrecked me. Why are you telling me this? You know what this makes you, right? What this turns you into? A rat. A snitch. Everything your father spent his life fighting against. You're throwing away your entire future for what, Sophia? For me? For some criminal you've known 6 weeks? His voice wasn't angry. It was sad. Like he was mourning something that hadn't even died yet. And I didn't have a good answer. Didn't have some noble speech prepared. All I could say was I couldn't let them blindside you. I couldn't live with myself knowing I could have warned you and didn't. That's not justice, that's just revenge dressed up in legal paperwork. He stepped closer then, so close I could smell his cologne mixed with cigarette smoke, and his voice dropped to almost a whisper. You beautiful, stupid, incredible girl. Do you have any idea what you've just done? What this cost you? I tried to laugh it off, tried to act like it wasn't that deep, but my voice cracked when I said worth it. And that's when everything changed. He reached up, cupped my face with both hands like I was something precious, something breakable, and said, no, it's not worth it. I'm not worth it. You deserve someone who doesn't come with federal indictments and blood on their hands. Someone your father would be proud of. Someone safe. But I didn't want safe. I'd had safe my whole life and it felt like slowly suffocating. So I did something I'd been holding back for 6 weeks. I kissed him. Just crashed my lips against his before my brain could talk me out of it, before logic could intervene, before fear could win. And for half a second he froze. Completely still, like he couldn't believe it was happening. Then he kissed me back and oh God, it was like every romance novel and movie and song suddenly made sense. His hands tangled in my hair, my arms wrapped around his neck, and the rest of the world just ceased to exist. Nothing mattered except this moment, this man, this choice I was making with my eyes wide open. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he pressed his forehead against mine. "We're so screwed," he whispered. "So completely screwed." And I laughed, actually laughed, because yeah, we absolutely were. But here's what I didn't know in that moment, what I couldn't have predicted even if I'd tried. That parking garage had cameras. Old ones, grainy footage, but clear enough. And my father's investigator, the one tracking Vincent's movements as part of the Rico case, he'd been following Vincent that night. Had watched him pull in, had recorded everything through a telephoto lens. Every word I'd said about the case. Every classified detail I'd leaked. Every kiss. Everything. The investigator took that footage straight to my father. Walked into Judge Harrison's home office at 1 a.m. and laid it all out. And my father, the man who'd spent 30 years on the bench handing down sentences without flinching, the man who'd taught me about integrity and honor and doing the right thing no matter the cost, he watched his only daughter commit federal crimes on camera while making out with his biggest enemy. I didn't know any of this yet. Didn't know that while Vincent was driving me home, while we were making plans to figure out our impossible situation, while I was feeling alive for the first time in my carefully controlled life, my entire world was being systematically demolished. I fell asleep that night thinking maybe, just maybe, we could find a way to make this work. Maybe love could be enough. Maybe we could build something real despite all the obstacles. I was so naive it's almost painful to remember. You've already chosen your side by getting this far. Drop a dot if you know exactly which moment ruined you. Stay till the end because what my father did next, it's the part nobody sees coming, the part that changes everything you think you understand about loyalty and love. I woke up the next morning to my phone exploding with calls. Vincent over and over. Panicked voicemails telling me not to go home, telling me it wasn't safe, telling me we needed to talk right now. But before I could call him back, there was a knock on my apartment door. Not a normal knock. The kind of knock that means authority. I opened it to find 2 FBI agents and my father standing in the hallway, and the look on his face, I'd never seen him look at me like that before. Like I was a stranger. Like I was something disgusting he'd found on the bottom of his shoe. "Miss Harrison," one agent said, real formal and cold, "you're under arrest for obstruction of justice, conspiracy to commit obstruction, and disclosure of confidential law enforcement information. You have the right to remain silent." They put handcuffs on me right there in my doorway while my neighbors watched. Perp walked me through the lobby where I'd lived for 2 years, where everyone knew me as the nice law student who always smiled. My father didn't say a single word. Just watched with his arms crossed and his jaw tight. And here's the really messed up part, this was his play. His calculated move. See, my father knew that arresting me would do 2 things. 1, it would send a message to Vincent that nobody was untouchable, not even family. That Judge Harrison didn't play favorites, not even for his own blood. 2, and this was the genius evil part, it would force Vincent to make a choice. Because a man like Vincent Moretti doesn't let people he cares about go down alone. My father was betting everything on the fact that Vincent would do something stupid to try to save me. Something that would give them the evidence they needed to nail him on charges that would actually stick. He was using me as bait. His own daughter. And the worst part, it was going to work. They processed me like any other criminal. Fingerprints, mugshot, the whole degrading routine. Threw me in a holding cell with women who'd actually committed real crimes, not just fallen in love with the wrong person. And I sat there on that metal bench, still wearing my Stanford Law hoodie, and thought about how fast your entire life can implode. 24 hours ago I was on track to graduate top of my class, maybe clerk for a Supreme Court justice, make my father proud. Now I was facing 15 years in federal prison. The public defender they assigned me was this exhausted-looking woman named Rita who'd probably handled 10,000 cases just like mine, except none of them were exactly like mine because none of them involved Judge Harrison's daughter. She laid it out real simple. "Sophia, they have you dead to rights. Video evidence, audio recordings, digital forensics showing you accessed confidential case files. The DA is offering you a deal. Full cooperation against Vincent Moretti. Testify to everything he told you, everything you witnessed, wear a wire if necessary. Do that and they'll reduce your charges to a misdemeanor, probation, maybe community service. You could still have a life." I asked her what happened if I didn't take the deal, even though I already knew. She looked at me like I was crazy. "Then you go to trial, get convicted, and spend the next decade and a half in prison. Your law career is over either way, but at least this way you're not behind bars. Think about what you're protecting here. A mobster. A criminal. A man who's destroyed lives. Is he really worth throwing away everything for?" And that's when it hit me. Everyone kept asking me that question. Is he worth it? Like Vincent was some object I was trading my future for, like this was a simple cost-benefit analysis. But they didn't get it. This wasn't about whether Vincent was worth it. This was about who I was. What I stood for. Whether I was the kind of person who betrayed someone to save myself, or whether I had the guts to face the consequences of my own choices. My father taught me that actions have consequences, that integrity means doing the right thing even when it costs you everything. Well, here I was, living out that lesson. Just not the way he'd expected. I told Rita no deal. I'd take my chances at trial. She thought I'd lost my mind, and maybe I had. But I slept better that night in that cell than I had in months. 3 days later I made bail. Or more accurately, someone made bail for me. Anonymous benefactor, the court clerk said. $250,000 cash. I knew exactly who it was. Vincent had people everywhere, resources I couldn't even imagine. But he was smart enough not to show his face, not to make it obvious. When I got out, there was a burner phone waiting for me at my apartment with one message. Marina Del Rey. Slip 47. Midnight. Come alone. I should have known it was a setup. Should have realized my father would have people watching me 24/7, waiting for me to lead them straight to Vincent. But I was desperate to see him, to explain, to figure out what the hell we were going to do. So I went. The marina was quiet that night, just the sound of boat lines clinking against masts and water lapping against hulls. I found Slip 47, a decent-sized yacht named Checkmate, which should have been my first clue. Vincent was waiting on deck, and when I climbed aboard, he pulled me into his arms so tight I could barely breathe. I thought I lost you, he said into my hair. When they arrested you, when I couldn't get to you, I thought I'd gotten you killed. But I'm here, I said. I'm okay. We're okay. He pulled back, held my face in his hands, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Fear. Real bone-deep terror. No, Sophia. We're not okay. Nothing about this is okay. Your father didn't arrest you to punish you. He arrested you to get to me. And I walked right into it because I'm a selfish bastard who couldn't stay away from you. That's when I noticed the other people on the boat. 3 men in dark suits, federal agent written all over them, and my father stepping out of the cabin. My blood turned to ice. Vincent's hand went to his waistband where I knew he kept his gun, but the agents were faster. Hands where we can see them, Moretti. Don't make this worse. But here's the thing nobody expected. Vincent started laughing. Actually laughing like this was the funniest thing he'd ever seen. He looked at my father and said, "You magnificent son of a bitch. You used your own daughter as bait. That takes a special kind of cold. Most people, they at least pretend to have limits." My father's face was stone. "You corrupted my daughter. Turned her into a criminal. This ends tonight. One way or another." Vincent shook his head, still smiling, but there was no humor in it. "I didn't corrupt her, Judge. I showed her the truth. Showed her that your righteous justice system is just as dirty as anything I run, just with better PR. She chose me because I was honest about what I am. Can you say the same?" For a second I thought my father might actually hit him. But instead he turned to me. "Sophia, this is your last chance. Walk off this boat with me right now, testify against him, and we can fix this. You made a mistake, but you're young. People make mistakes." "I can't believe you," I said, and my voice was shaking with rage I didn't even know I had. "You arrested me. Your own daughter. You paraded me through the lobby in handcuffs, let the whole world see. And now you want to play concerned father? You made your choice when you chose your precious case over me." His jaw clenched. "I chose justice. I chose protecting this city from men like him." "That's not justice," I shot back. "That's ego. This whole thing, it was never about right and wrong. It was about you winning. About you being the hero who took down the big bad mobster, even if it meant sacrificing your own kid." Vincent stepped between us, and when he spoke, his voice was deadly calm. "Here's what's going to happen, Judge. Your daughter is walking off this boat with you, and she's taking that deal your day offered. She's going to testify, say whatever you need her to say, and she's going to rebuild her life." My father scoffed. "And you're just going to let her betray you? Just like that?" Vincent looked at me, then really looked at me, and I saw everything he was feeling written across his face. Love, regret, resignation. For her? Yeah, I am. Because unlike you, I actually care about what happens to her more than I care about being right. But here's the thing, Judge. You think you won because you're about to get your testimony, but you lost your daughter tonight. She'll never look at you the same way again. She'll never trust you again. And that's going to eat at you for the rest of your life. Was it worth it? My father said nothing. Just stared at Vincent with pure hatred. Then Vincent did something that changed everything again. He pulled out his phone, pulled up a video file, and held it where the agents could see. "This is footage from 3 years ago," he said. Your star witness in the RICO case, Detective Marcus Chin, planting evidence in my warehouses. I've got 12 more videos just like it. I've got bank records showing payoffs to half the people on your task force. I've got enough dirt to burn down your entire case and take most of your department with it. The agents exchanged looks. My father went pale. You're bluffing, he said, but his voice wavered. Am I? Vincent's smile was sharp as a knife. Here's my offer. You drop all charges against Sophia. Clean record like none of this ever happened. In exchange, I don't release these files to every media outlet in California. Your case against me falls apart, yeah, but at least your reputation stays intact. At least you're still Judge Harrison, champion of justice, instead of Judge Harrison who built his career on corrupted evidence. My father looked like he might actually have a heart attack. This is extortion. Vincent shrugged. Call it what you want. But you've got 60 seconds to decide. Do you save your daughter or do you go down with your sinking ship? The silence stretched out forever. The agents were watching my father, waiting for his call. And I was watching Vincent, realizing he'd had this ace up his sleeve the whole time. He could have used it to save himself weeks ago, but he'd saved it for this moment. For me. Finally, my father spoke, and his voice was broken in a way I'd never heard. Release my daughter. Drop the charges. Vincent nodded slowly. Smart choice. The agents uncuffed me, and just like that, I was free. My father couldn't even look at me as I walked past him off that boat. But before I left, Vincent caught my hand. One last thing, he said quietly, just for me. This doesn't mean we get a happy ending, Sophia. Your father's right about one thing. My world, it destroys everything good. You need to walk away from me. Live your life. Find someone who can give you what you deserve. I wanted to argue, wanted to fight, but looking at his eyes, I saw he'd already made up his mind. This was him protecting me the only way he knew how. By letting me go. So I walked away. Got in a cab, went back to my apartment and tried to piece together what was left of my life. The charges were dropped like Vincent promised. My record was clean technically, but everyone knew. The story had leaked, social media had a field day, and Judge Harrison's daughter who fell for a mob boss became the hottest gossip in legal circles from San Diego to San Francisco. Stanford Law quietly suggested I take a semester off. Translation: don't come back. My father moved out of our family house into some downtown condo and stopped returning my calls. The few friends I had left treated me like I was radioactive. And Vincent, he disappeared. Completely off the grid, like he'd never existed at all. I heard through the grapevine that he'd dismantled parts of his operation, moved money offshore, vanished into whatever network guys like him use when they need to become ghosts. The RICO case fell apart exactly like he'd predicted once those videos went public. Half the task force got investigated, 3 detectives took early retirement, and my father's reputation took a hit he'd never fully recover from. He was still Judge Harrison, still on the bench, but the shine was gone. Everyone knew he'd been willing to sacrifice his daughter for a case, and that kind of thing sticks with people. Makes them wonder what else you're willing to sacrifice for ambition. 6 months passed. 6 months of therapy, of working dead-end jobs because no law firm would touch me, of living in a city that felt too small and too big at the same time. 6 months of trying to convince myself that Vincent was right, that walking away was the smart choice, the healthy choice, the only choice that made sense. I almost believed it. Then one night I'm closing up the bookstore where I'd been working, this little indie place in Silver Lake, and there's a guy standing outside when I lock the door. Baseball cap pulled low, hands in his pockets, and my heart stops because I'd know that posture anywhere. He looks different. Scruffier, more tired, but those eyes are the same. Sophia, he says quietly. We need to talk. I should have told him to leave. Should have protected the fragile peace I'd been building. But instead I said, there's a bar 2 blocks down. He followed me there, we grabbed a booth in the back, and for a long minute we just looked at each other. Finally he spoke. I tried to stay away. Swear to God I tried. Told myself you deserved better, that I'd already ruined enough of your life. But I can't do it, Sophia. I can't pretend you don't exist. Can't pretend that night in the garage didn't change everything. I'm not asking you to jump back into this. I'm not asking you to choose me over your life. I just need to know if you feel it too. If I'm crazy for thinking what we had was real. My throat felt tight. You're not crazy. It was real. It is real. That's the problem. He reached across the table, took my hand, and I felt that same electricity I'd felt the first time we touched. So what do we do? He asked. Because I'm all out of smart plays here. I don't have answers. I don't have a plan that makes sense. All I know is that I'm tired of pretending I don't want this. And that's when I realized something. My whole life, I'd been following rules, meeting expectations, being the person everyone else needed me to be. The perfect daughter, the perfect student, the perfect future lawyer. And where had it gotten me? Alone in a city that judged me for the one real choice I'd ever made. Maybe it was time to stop apologizing for that choice. Maybe it was time to actually commit to it. What if we just left? I said. Left LA, left California, started over somewhere nobody knows our names? He looked at me like I'd suggested we fly to the moon. You'd really do that? Give up everything here for a life on the run with me? There's nothing left for me here, Vincent. My father won't speak to me. My career is dead. My friends are gone. The only thing keeping me in this city is the ghost of who I used to be. And honestly, I don't miss her that much. She was kind of boring. He laughed, actually laughed, and it was the best sound I'd heard in months. You're insane. Completely out of your mind. I know, I said, squeezing his hand. Must be why we work. We left that night. Didn't go back to my apartment, didn't pack bags, didn't tell anyone. Just got in his car and drove north on the PCH with no destination in mind. And for the first time since that kiss in the parking garage, I felt like I could breathe. Now, here's the part where I'm supposed to tell you we lived happily ever after, right? That love conquered all and we built some perfect life together away from all the chaos. But this isn't that kind of story. This is the story of what happens when you choose passion over safety, when you burn down your old life to build something new, when you stop asking permission and start taking what you want. Did we make it work? Did my father ever forgive me? Did Vincent's past catch up with us? Did we survive in the real world outside the bubble of those secret meetings and stolen moments? That's a whole different story. One that involves 3 different countries, 2 close calls with international law enforcement, 1 unexpected pregnancy, and a revelation about my father that changed everything I thought I knew about him. But here's what I can tell you. That forbidden kiss didn't ruin Vincent's world or mine. It destroyed the worlds we were pretending to live in and forced us to build real ones. Messy, complicated, terrifying real ones. And yeah, there were consequences. There are always consequences when you choose love over logic, when you choose truth over comfort, when you choose yourself over everyone else's expectations. But those consequences, as brutal as they were, led me to a life I actually wanted to live instead of one I was supposed to want. So was it worth it? That's the question everyone kept asking me, the question I kept asking myself. And after everything, after all the pain and loss and chaos, here's my answer. Ask me again after you've heard what happened next. After you know about the night 3 years later when my father showed up at our door in Prague with information that made me question everything Vincent had ever told me. After you know about the choice I had to make between the man I loved and the truth about who he really was. Because that kiss in the parking garage, that was just the beginning. The real story, the one that'll mess you up even more than this one, that comes after. When the lies started unraveling. When I discovered what Vincent had been hiding from me since the day we met. When I realized that maybe, just maybe, my father had been right about him all along. But you'll have to stick around to hear that part. You'll have to follow this channel, watch the next video, because what I'm about to tell you about the Prague incident, about what I found in Vincent's safe, about the real reason he'd been at that interrogation the day we met, it changes everything you think you understand about this story. Everyone thinks they know how these forbidden love stories end. Star-crossed lovers against the world, right? Wrong. Sometimes the person you die for is the same person who's been lying to your face. Sometimes the love that saves you is the same love that destroys you. And sometimes the villain in your story isn't who you think it is. The next video drops in 2 days, and trust me, you're going to want to see this. Because the story I just told you about the judge's daughter and the mob boss, about choosing love over everything else, about that one forbidden kiss that changed 2 lives, that was the fairy tale version. What happened in Prague, what I discovered about Vincent's real business, about why he'd really gotten close to me in the first place, about the role my father actually played in all of this, that's the truth. And the truth, it's so much darker and more twisted than anything you're imagining right now. Hit that subscribe button if you can handle where this is really going. Watch the other videos on this channel if you want more stories about the beautiful disasters we call love, about the lines we cross and can't uncross, about the prices we pay for choosing our hearts over our heads. Because this channel, it's not about happy endings. It's about real endings. The kind that leave scars and teach lessons and make you question everything you thought you knew about love and loyalty and truth. See you in the next one. If you're brave enough to find out what really happened. If you're ready to learn that sometimes, the person who saves you from one nightmare is just leading you into a darker one. That kiss in the parking garage off Sunset Boulevard, it didn't just start a chain reaction. It set off a bomb with a 3-year fuse, and when it finally exploded in Prague, it took everything with it. Everything. But that's a story for next time.